How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Last time we talked, you were still in that room,
Yeah.
and you and I were going. I was working at home, and you and I were going. Well, Rupi, it's going to be a hard 2 weeks, but we're
Yeah.
but we're going to make it.
We were like, by the end of the summer, we'll be out of here and things will be back to normal. And now I've accepted that I'll be here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was like, oh yeah, me and Rupi, we're going to go to the Eaton Center in like 3 months. It's going to be
Yeah, yeah,
great. We're
yeah.
going to walk around, get a pretzel. Nope, no one's going
No,
anywhere.
no.
But you doing all right?
I am. I think that I am sort of hitting a slump place. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I'm baking frantically.
yeah.
Cookies are happening every night, and so are muffins. The weather's changing. It's gray outside, so it's hard not to feel like it's also gray in here. And I think a lot of people are feeling it.
You ever see the first Star Wars, like when they're in the Death Star trash compactor, and
Yeah.
the walls start doing this, they start closing in. Like that's how I'm feeling. Like I'm feeling like every day is just that wall is a little bit tighter.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it feels. And I've been talking to my friends, and they're just like, there's just nothing to look forward to. And like, what purpose am I going to find in this time? I'm like, you are asking the same questions I'm asking. I don't know.
I will say that reading your putting down my phone, staying off the internet, and reading your book as I did, and lingering on the pages was a lovely break from it. In both an empathetic way, both an escapist way, and in a way that made this a bit easier. Posted a video on Instagram that you said, I began writing this book at a time I was completely lost. Homebody is a love letter to the self. You were completely lost. What was going on?
Um, I feel like I always start this answering this question with, and I don't know. I mean, mental health is complicated,
Yeah.
and sometimes you don't even know you're in the midst of something terrible until you look behind and you're like, oh, am I allowed to say that word?
Yeah,
I'm
well, you're Rupi
sorry
Kaur.
on there.
You're Rupi Kaur. You essentially own the CBC. You can do whatever you want. Don't worry about it.
um, I think it was too, I mean, my life changed so dramatically, right? In the midst of like, I self-published a collection of poetry while at the University of Waterloo. I published it for fun, thinking like five of my friends were going to buy it. And I just loved the idea of having a book with my name on it. And then all of a sudden it became a whole thing. And, I was in the midst of thinking I'm going to go to law school. I still have my LSAT prep books, they're like sitting downstairs somewhere. And my life changed in such beautiful ways. But I think physically and mentally it was hard because I don't know, like nobody prepares you to be on tour all by yourself for 2 years and all of the things that come with it. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I think that depression and anxiety set in as a way of letting you know, hey, you're not taking care of yourself. You're not being still, you're not being present, and you're not happy. And I think what I learned was everything that was happening on the outside, it wasn't fulfilling or satisfying in any way. And perhaps I expected it to
Mm,
because I don't know. Isn't that like what I don't know, like the definition of success is, but no matter how many times the book hit number one or how many times like anything amazing happened, I just felt empty here. And I really had to get to a place where I could sit still and be comfortable with myself, and do the inner work. And it was only once I did that inner work that I felt satisfied and comfortable. And it had nothing to do with anything on the external. It had to do with me being comfortable with the internal.
it reminds me of a line in the book you write. I want to live. I'm just afraid I won't measure up to the ideas people have of me in their heads.
Yeah.
What a pressure.
Oh gosh, that's basically what I felt while writing Homebody. I think as writers, and a lot of writers say this, it's such a writing, when you're writing, you have to contemplate and the most difficult parts of yourself. You have to get
Yeah.
so close, and sometimes you're so close that you can't even see things clearly. So while I'm writing Homebody, I'm like, wow, none of this is good. I'm comparing it to Milk and Honey.
Yeah.
I'm comparing it to all of these older versions of me. And I'm like, wow, this will never meet up. This will never meet up. And that's really where that line that you just read came from, thinking that this is just going to fall flat on its face. And then I'm going to go have to live in a cave somewhere because people are going to realize that I'm not the real deal, whatever the hell that means.
When did you get to the point, and like you mentioned, it's not like you're in a car one day and all of a sudden it dawns on you. That's not how mental health works. When did you start realizing that, hold on, this isn't filling that void? Hold on, I have all this success. It's not feeling good. It's not making me better. And I'm feeling a lot of stress and anxiety. Like, it feels like you had some sort of realization I can read in this book.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the anxiety kicked in full force in 2015. I remember the moment exactly. It was March or April, and this photo that I'd published for a school project, it was of me like on my bed, and it was like a period stain on my bottom and on my sheets. When that photo went viral, and suddenly I was waking up to tens of thousands of comments and opinions, and 50% of them threatening my life.
And you're
The
reading
anxiety
you're
sort
reading
of,
them?
oh yeah, in 2015, I was reading them because I had no idea that one shouldn't read them.
Yeah.
And then, I was like, it was me, all my friends, my roommates, and we're all like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Da, 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 da. Like, it was just insanity, 'cause it was something that we never expected. And the anxiety sort of set in, and it never really left because I think I never really dealt with it because I just sort of was being dragged by the train of life. And it was sometime, I think in 2019 or late 2018, when I was like, I don't think that I can go on or make it 2 or 3 more years living like this. And so I really need to do something and do it quick because this isn't working. And I've never been one to think that external objects or success are going to fill me in any way because, I grew up with a father who constantly told me those things are not shit. And so I was like, okay, well then what is going to help? And then I went on a whole sort of journey, and I hate calling it that because it sounds so corny, but
Oh, come on, it's a journey. I get it. It's a journey.
yeah, it's a journey. So I did the thing that we all do, which is like start meditating, which was complicated at first because for somebody who is depressed and has such irrational negative thoughts, it's constantly spiraling. You don't want to just try to sit for 20 minutes on your own and breathing. So
Yeah.
that was hard at
It can
first, but I will
physically
say,
hurt. It can physically
oh
hurt to
yeah,
do that. Yeah.
it physically hurts. And so I was like, I can't do this on my own. So I signed up for a class, and I will say it was like a 3-hour class. It was like an intro class somewhere in Toronto. And after a 40-minute meditation, I felt that wall that I felt here for 4 years,
Yeah.
it did fizzle. And then I was doing therapy, and then I was like trying to exercise and eating right. And it becomes a whole lifestyle thing. And it's so ironic because you're forced to do the exact things that are so difficult to do. Like, it's hard for folks who are depressed to get out of bed in the morning. And then all of a sudden, my doctor's like, you need to work out for an hour every single day. And I'm like, oh my God, is there not something easier?
I know. This morning I woke up. I was doing the show live this morning, and I said, something doesn't feel right. Like, just one of those old feelings started coming back. And I had to go through like a mental checklist of like the 30 things. I was like, okay, did I drink, or did I eat something I shouldn't have? Did I not go for a run? I was like, there's so many things I need to do just to like be base. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I didn't realize that because I grew up in circumstances where I was always in survival mode or always on alert. And I mean, I don't want to go into those things, but I've always been functioning like this. So when I hit a place where I wasn't able to just like power through, I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I've like spent my entire life being a bulldozer and just like powering through harder things than this. So what is wrong with me? And so I think in writing Homebody, I realized, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is what being human is about.
You write about some of those things, and like you said, you are not expected to, and you certainly don't have to talk about any of them. But you talk about these things in the book, or you talk about having
Mm.
suicidal ideations and hating yourself and not being able to get out of bed from the weight of it all. You talk candidly about sexual assault. You talk candidly about a bad intimate partner relationship. I can't imagine what it was like to write all that out.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of an outer body experience now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I explore all those things in Milk and Honey because those are my truth. And it was funny because after Milk and Honey came out, that 21-year-old version of me, the day that it came out, had this very naive idea that I was all past it. That, oh my goodness, I've been able to release it and it's never going to bother me
Yeah.
again. And I circle back with Homebody with the realization that perhaps these things will never leave. And that's okay because I'm okay. And so, and I think with the depression and the anxiety, those things, of course, still come from that. And Homebody, I mean, that's why I call it that, because our stories and our journeys continue to live in our bodies. When we might feel like we've worked past the thing that we endured when we were 5, 10, 15 years old, but everything lives in here and the body remembers.
But you're taking it out of your body, you're putting it on page, and you're sending it out to literally millions of people. How does
Mm-hmm.
that feel?
It feels weird.
All right, we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird, but my readers are so thoughtful and incredible and amazing and respectful, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. And I think that's what makes it easy, is because these folks are interested in love and sharing and healing and all the things that I care about. So it feels like I'm sharing this was just an extension of my like human family. And so it's nice. I mean, I'm not reading stuff on the internet anymore,
Good.
but here and there my friends will be like, "Oh my god, this is what this person said." And it just like melts my heart because this is such a close and personal story, and to know that there's other people out there who are perhaps experiencing the same thing or working through the same sort of trauma. It's a giant exhale, really, for me in this moment.
My guest is Rupi Kaur. Her new collection of poetry, Homebody, is out everywhere now. That support system you mentioned there is also a big part of this book. I want to sort of talk about healing now. Your real sisters, your girlfriends, you write, it was women who nourished me back to life. And I can see you
Yeah,
smiling as I say it.
I love them. Yeah, I've always been blessed with the bestest of friends. So blessed. I mean, they're the women who forced me to get on stage for the first time, who pushed me to publish and believed in this wild version of myself before I could even see her. And they are also the women who made Homebody possible, because when I was depressed and sick and couldn't leave my bed,
Yeah.
my very good friend, who's also my manager, she would pick me up at 6:30 a.m. every single day and drive me to our office in Toronto every single day without complaint, get me my coffee, get me anything that I needed just to power through, and not a single complaint. And I mean, and all of them did, all of my friends. And that's why it feels like with this book, I don't even like, everyone's like, "Oh my God, I hope you're celebrating yourself." Okay, yeah, like whatever, I am, whatever. But really, I feel like this for me is a celebration of my community, because this book couldn't and wouldn't be possible if they weren't there to pick up my broken pieces.
You also talk about your family a lot in this book. You
Mm-hmm.
talk about
I
your
do.
parent, and you brought them up a couple of times in the interview already about the way you were brought up. I guess before we get going on that, how has it been spending this much time with them during COVID?
It's been good. I mean, we I would have never in my life spent this much time with them if life had gone on as it was. And so I feel like
Oh,
this, because I mean, I lived in New York before this, and I was like, I'll never leave New York to come back to Brampton. And so with the virus, I came back home, And it's been really nice. I mean, there's all the regular family drama still here, but it's nice to experience home as an adult versus as a troubled teenager for sure. And I am getting to know my parents as human beings, which they never really let me get close to when I was younger. And the six of us are finally, the six of us meaning my parents and my siblings and I, we're together for the first time after a decade. And who
Wow.
knows if after this pandemic we would ever be in the same place for a long extended period of time. And so they've definitely showed up in the book many, many times because I was around their love and surrounded by it while finishing half the book during the pandemic.
It's a gift if you can live to it and they can live to it, that you start to see your parents as humans, as you say, not so much as parents, but as people. And you tell a story in the book about your father, who's a truck driver, and he's driving through the United States, doing deliveries, and his appendix ruptures. Would you mind
Yeah.
just quickly telling that story?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was, he had just started at a new company. And so he was with another driver and he started to experience some pain. They weren't at the delivery point yet, they were in the middle of their journey. He's feeling a lot of pain and they ignore it. He's feeling a lot of pain, they ignore it. And then my dad's like, I can't go on anymore. So what they did was they stopped in the middle of nowhere and then they found a phone booth. They opened, this was back in the day before cell phones. They go to the phone booth, they pull out the giant yellow pages and they're flipping through and they're searching for the last name Singh. They find a Singh and they call him up and Singh, because my father and my family is sick, and Singh is like the sort of like overarching last name for all six. And they call up the stranger and they're like, hey, like this is who we are. We don't know what to do, where the closest hospital is, and we need help. And this amazing stranger, like that's, I love my community so much because we show up for each other like we're family. So the stranger drives to where my dad is, picks him up, takes him to the hospital. After, of course, taking him home and feeding them and all that, takes him to the hospital. And then the doctor there says, hey, buddy, like your appendix is going to burst. And my dad says, well, I am I can't afford the surgery. I have no health insurance. And this job that I'm doing, I'm not even being paid for it. And I'm going to go. And when I get back home to Canada, I'll deal with it there. And the doctor just looks at him and refuses to let him go. And the doctor says, I am just going to have to perform the surgery and we will figure out the money after. And so she's kind enough to perform the surgery. And he's not, they take care of the costs and everything. And you would think that my dad would like fly home or like the company would send him a ticket and get him back home. No, his boss is there with him in the truck and they finish the load. So after surgery, he walks out of the hospital and he spends 3 days. He goes to the truck, they drive to the drop off place, and he spends 3 days driving back home before he can get any rest. And I'd heard that story before, but he retold that story during the pandemic, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And because that day he was telling us all the stories of everything that he's experienced while doing this work.
Why do you think you
And I was
couldn't?
like,
Why do you think you couldn't get it out of your head?
because I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine doing that. Or I wonder if I was like not a 5 year old at the time, I would have sent him a plane ticket myself and taken care of the whole thing. But just to hear that this is while I was being fed, that these are the things that my parents were going through on a constant basis, breaks my heart. And I want to document that to make sure that I and my kids and their kids don't forget what we came from. Like, this is our entire lineage moving forward. The trajectory of us has changed because this one man who's a refugee came here and he worked so hard and sacrificed so much for us to be here. And I want his stories to be published and I want his stories to be documented for all to see.
Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no worries.
I find it hard to believe in some ways that at one point you were nervous about sharing personal things about yourself like that. You know what I mean? Because it's so
Hmm.
it's so meaningful, especially around mental health. Like I know you debated that for a while whether you should talk about mental health at all. So I guess
Yeah.
broadly, why'd you do it? What made it worth it?
I mean, I realized that it, unless I did it, I was never going to be able to write anything else. I tried to avoid it because I think none of it made sense to me. Like, why am I depressed? My life is going in such beautiful directions. I have no reason to be. And I think I struggled with that for such a long time. And that was the wall that I was hitting creatively. And I realized, oh, I will not be able to write another word unless I write my truth. And that's always been how I've done this. And so I was like, well, then my truth is what I have to write. And I wrote it all. I wrote it all. And I said, in the end, if I decide I don't want to share it, then I won't share it. And then in the end, what happened was we were in a global, worldwide
Hold
pandemic
on. What?
where
What? What?
now,
What happened?
where now suddenly everybody was talking about mental health and all these themes. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I guess it sort of fits now. People won't be like pointing their finger at me since we're all just feeling it. Okay, cool. I'll just throw this out there.
Well, it's a good thing to do. I mean, I guess finally, how are you holding up? You doing all right?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do
I
you
mean,
do?
life hasn't changed. I wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, I write if I want to, I read, I make things. I'm big into like art and crafting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just taking it for once, I'm taking it slow. At any other time, I'd be on tour and neglecting my mental and physical health or, like on nonstop going. And this will probably be the only time where I get to publish a book and then just like sit in bed for weeks if I want to.
What do you do on a bad day?
Whew. On a bad day, I
I mean
will,
to try and feel better. Not what does your bad day
yeah,
look
yeah,
like? What do
yeah.
you do to feel better?
I bake, I watch Netflix, and yeah, I eat because that makes me feel good. I don't know. I don't really, but I do try to also tell myself that this is not me. Like my anxiety and all these spiraling thoughts and my mood is not who I am. And once I go to sleep and I wake up, it's going to be a new day and I'll be a lot better. And it usually works.
I love that so much. That was
Yeah.
one of the parts of the book. It was like a short little, like maybe 3 lines that stuck out to me. And I can't quote it verbatim right now, but when I have a bad day, I try to remind myself that my emotions are separate, than my thoughts are separate from who I am.
Right.
And there was a
Yeah.
quick 3 lines in the poem that essentially just said that. Like, I am my mind. I'm not, my mind is separate than myself and is separate than my thoughts. And it's good to keep in
Right.
mind
Yeah.
when you're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
Yeah, you're
Exactly.
going to read a little bit for us from page 152 of Homebody. Before you do, can you set it up a little bit about where you were when you wrote this?
Hmm. This one I wrote, page 152, I wrote 2 years ago. I had just come back from touring in London and I decided that, okay, I'm going to seriously start writing this book and I'm seriously ready for it. And this is around the time where I was getting comfortable admitting to the people in my life that, hey, I'm struggling with depression and I need to get help. Um, and when I started to feel like I could honestly say that, this is the poem that came out of it. Today, I saw myself for the first time. When I dusted off the mirror of my mind and the woman looking back took my breath away. Who was this beautiful beastling, this extra celestial earthling? I touched my face and my reflection touched the woman of my dreams, all her gorgeous smirking back at me. My knees surrendered to the earth as I wept and sighed at how I'd gone my whole life being myself, but not seeing myself. how I'd spent decades living inside my body, never left it once, yet managed to miss all its miracles. Isn't it funny how you can occupy a space without being in touch with it? How it took so long for me to open the eyes of my eyes, embrace the heart of my heart, kiss the soles of my swollen feet, and hear them whisper, "Thank you, thank you, thank you for noticing."
That was Rupi Kaur reading from her new collection of poetry called Homebody. Rupi, thank you.
Thank you. This is lovely.